Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is the Listening Mentor. What is the Listening Mentor? It's a designation that I have as I help people learn to listen at an elevated level. My whole goal for doing this is to help people create and find their own inner peace. And if each and every one of us has inner peace, wouldn't that naturally lead to world peace? So that's what we're here creating. Joining me every Friday is a dear friend, someone who has an area of expertise that is so relevant and needed in the world. She is the Harley Street stress expert. And if you're not familiar with Harley Street, it's a very famous street in London. That is where all of the licensed professionals go to help other people. And Caroline can speak a little bit more to that. Let us welcome to the show Caroline Heward, joining us from London. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Nice to see you. How are you?
It's always good to see you, Dr. JACALYN. It feels like it's Friday, but the end of my week.
Friday. And it's actually Friday night for you.
Yes, it is. It is my Friday night.
Well, you're my Friday night date, even though it's my Friday afternoon. So
we'll get people talking.
Absolutely. Well, I would love for you to just start off with people who are joining us for the first time, especially since we have new radio platforms and people might just be tuning in to the very first show for the first time. Tell us a little bit more about your background and why it's so important for you to help people bust their stress.
Okay, well, I'm Caroline Heward and known as the Harley Street stress expert. Why Harley Street? Because it is the famous street known in Europe as the place to be if you're a specialist in complementary therapy or doctors. And I felt that it was important to do the work that I'm doing in terms of stress therapy to be in the best street possible. So that's why Harley Street expert. Well, I've been doing this work for 22 years now, so I reckon that gives me the status of expert. What made me do this work is I ended up in a depression following my father passing away back in 2000. And when I became aware of that depression, I felt that it was important to handle it, so that I explored ways of handling the depression. And that led me into all sorts of different therapies. And as I cured myself of the depression and the stress related situations that I found myself in life, I wanted to help others. And I'm a bit like that. I solve my own challenge or my own problem, and then I like to think, well, other people must have these challenges, so I'd like to help them. And so that's why I do the work that I do, because I was a very stressed out and high-flying corporate girl and didn't feel I existed through life. And now I feel through life and help those that actually struggle and challenge themselves with stress to feel. And it's my mission and my purpose to create world peace.
Yay, I love this. Two kindred spirits in that regard. Today's topic is the biggest opportunities in relationships today. And I felt like this was a really important topic because so many times we hear from people, we've been those people where we're in a relationship, whatever it might be, and we're just focused on everything that's wrong instead of looking at what is right. So when we look at opportunities, how can we take a relationship that is with a loved one, someone we truly care about, maybe it's a family member, or maybe it's even someone at work that we are with all the time, or we have to interact with. And instead of taking the relationship and really beating it to death constantly, how can we actually make it flourish and make it an opportunity to be stronger, be better? What are your thoughts about that, Caroline?
I actually had a client today that this was the very topic that we were looking at. It was, so this is very beautiful. What happens in a relationship is the person that's closest to us will be triggering us because they will have their stuff, you have your stuff, and they know us well. So there will be things that they say, things that you say, they say, that will be trigger points. Now, it is always about our reaction and our response to those triggers. Now, they are in their world and they will have their own things to handle, just like you do. And so it is important, you'll love this, Dr. JACALYN, to listen. It is really important to listen in a place of compassion. Sometimes the person just wants to download. They just want to tell you stuff. They don't need you to solve it. They don't need you to question what they have decided to do, what they did. Sometimes they literally just need you to hear them. And when they feel heard, they actually calm down. And so a lot of times we're in relationships, we think we have to solve something that the person's talking about, but not necessarily. We all have our different ways of being and acting in life. And so my biggest gift and tip for you is to listen in a place of compassion and to realize that they're not having a go at you, they're sharing how they feel about something. And if there is a trigger point for you, a charge, something that you feel, oh, that hurt a bit, and oh, what do they mean by that? And I didn't do that. So when you get into the defensive or the justification, that is something for you to work through because it's something that's going on for you.
Thank you, Caroline. Really good points you made there. Something that I share with people I'm close to, if, for example, it happened this morning, someone reached out and said that they'd like to have a conversation about X, Y, and Z. And I already know after broadcasting all week, by the time I'm done my last show today, no one wants to be near me. That is for sure, because I am so tired and mentally exhausted. So for me to have a conversation with someone tonight is not going to be very profitable or beneficial for anyone. So I've set a boundary that no interaction, no conversations on a Friday night. And while that might not be received well, I'm actually looking out for the other person as well. What are your thoughts about setting boundaries like this?
Good boundary setting. My input on that is, rather than saying not this time or not that time, telling them what is a good time, because the mind does not hear the word no or don't. So when you say, don't call me at this time, the mind is actually hearing, call me at this time. So it's much better for you to say, call me on a Saturday morning between this time and this time, I'm free. And then they have when to call rather than when not to call.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I did let the person know that it would be over the weekend, but at this point in time, I'm not mentally capable of making the decision as to when it would be.
It's absolutely integral for you to take the time that you need. You know, when I'm doing a meditation or working with a client, I will always allow myself a good additional hour over and above the time that I think I'm going to need to clear a client before I'm free to speak. So I always build in that time. And if I'm preparing for a client session, a physical session, then I'm not free in the morning. If I've got a client at, say, 11 o'clock, I don't take any calls until like after I've seen the client. So I say I'm free Wednesday evening from any time after 6. And so I don't kind of cram anything in if I can help it, because that makes me tetchy because I'm preparing for a client and I want to be everything for what I'm preparing for. If I'm preparing to go out for a meditation, I don't want to be cramming in a call with somebody, sort of in the hour that I'm supposed to be preparing to go to my meditation evening. So it is about knowing what feels good for you. And when you do that, when you say, well, I'm free this time, this day, this evening, it then leaves you with a feeling of freedom, because I also have to plan in eating too, and going to shopping and, just doing things that, I call it, Miss Domestic Goddess, we still have to plan in time for that. And if you're on broadcast all day, you have to have time to have a shower, and relax and have something to eat. And you don't want to be bothered by calls. I know it sounds a little bit, sort of simple and mean almost, but, you don't need to tell them what you need that time for. You just tell them. If I actually said, and this is the justification thing, if I turned around and said, oh, I can't speak to you this time because I've just done a broadcast and I'll be really tired and I need to clean up and I need to have something to eat, the person's going, just tell me when you want me to call you, inside their mind. So they don't need to have the domestic bits. They just need to know when you're free.
I love this. I love this because people will do that to me as well. They'll say, well, I'm sorry I was late because I did. I don't even care. I'm not even mad that you're late. And now I have to hear all this other information that I don't need to hear. So that's really valid for all of us, including me as well. So thank you for sharing that.
You can tell that I do it myself.
We all do it.
In practice, and sometimes I say, oh, I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I got caught up with things. You can do a cover over, a general, I'm sorry, I just got caught up. I didn't realize the time. But you don't need to tell them all the bits.
Yes. And, we just talked about this earlier on a show this morning, and this is a little off topic, but just to mention it. So especially if you're in a Zoom meeting as opposed to an actual meeting in person. I remember when I was in my corporate role, and also when I forget, it was my doctorate or my master's, it was made very clear by, let's say, that instructor, that professor, and then one of my managers in corporate, that if you were late, you weren't going to be able to get into the room because the door was locked and you could not get in. I don't even know if they have locked doors in buildings like that anymore. But so people knew you weren't going to get an opportunity to explain why it was you were late. And obviously there are sometimes that things are thrown at us that we're not prepared for that make us late. But when you are late, especially on a Zoom meeting or something, when people pop in late and then they interrupt the meeting to announce that they're late, we already know you're late. Okay. We saw you come in after everyone else, and now you're interrupting the meeting, and now you're giving an excuse about why you're late. No one cares, right?
It's a justification mechanism for the person to reclaim their power back. And this justification mechanism, we do it in our relationships, with family, with friendships, in our business world. So we do it because we're always in a relationship. We're relating in terms of everybody and everything. So we're in a relationship to everyone, whether it's an intimate relationship or a friendship. It's all, we're relating to everything and everyone. And so we do have this human thing, some of us do, that where we feel we have to say, I'm sorry. And this is the reason why. Because we don't want the person to feel bad about us or feel that we wronged them or we didn't value their time. So this is the human thing that comes out, that they're wanting to say, hey, I'm sorry, this is the reason why. And it's a justification. I'm sorry, this is why I'm here now. And it's not for the person that they've been late to, it's actually for themselves.
Yes, very valid point. And also I'd like to say, when we look at opportunities in relationships, maybe we can think about how we're showing up. And if we do something to upset the other person, instead of giving a long litany of reasons and justifications as to why we did what we did, maybe we can first off say we're sorry and find out how what we did impacted the other person. I'm sorry that I was late, Caroline. How did that impact you? I'm just throwing that out there. And then you could say whatever, and then maybe that puts that issue to rest.
Absolutely, because the other person doesn't know what's going on in your world. Because you're the person, you're the leader of your own world and your own ship, but the other person doesn't know what's going on. They just see you're late, or you didn't turn up, you didn't show up. That's even worse. Why didn't you show up? Oh, they just can't be bothered. And so this is where this justification mechanism comes in. And you can just drop a short note in Zoom, especially, there's like a little chat box, and you can put in the chat, please accept my apologies for my lateness. I got caught out with a few things overran. And you don't need to give anything more than that. Just an apology usually will be enough to say, hey, I do respect and value your time, and I'm sorry I'm late. The excuses are for you to feel better. And it's important to acknowledge that, because the other person that's holding the meeting has no idea why you're late or whether you're not showing up. So
Yes.
this is communication. Sometimes, in fact, this was something else that I went through with a client, that they were very busy getting a task done, and they forgot or didn't communicate that with their partner. And then the partner felt left out of the conversation, of the decision, and was left with the decision. Oh, well, this has happened. And it wasn't that the decision was wrong. It was a good decision. And actually, it was that the other person felt diminished because they weren't consulted. There was no level of communication in that interaction of a job being discovered to have been done. And so we all want to be part of that interaction, because if we don't feel that we're consulted, we don't feel important in that relationship.
Yes, that's very true. And I can relate to that. I've had similar things happen to me throughout the course of time. And when we look at opportunities, again, in relationships, and how there are patterns of behavior that cause things to escalate, so the effective communication actually breaks down. If we can identify the root cause very quickly. So, for example, if someone's typically late in a meeting situation for work, and it happens over and over and over again, well, this is now a pattern of behavior. It's not a one-off. And the other peers, the leader, the manager, they're obviously going to recognize that this person is continuously late, which would indicate something else typically. And that happens also in personal relationships. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and then apologizing and asking for forgiveness, well, why do you keep doing the same thing over and over again? What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, it's a good one. It is true. I used to be one of those people that was always late. And when I was married, my then husband would say to me, you forget to time in the travel. And this is very key for some people, especially for physical meetings. He commented, and I thought it was quite funny, because he was right. Other people can see your stuff. You don't always see it. And so if a meeting started at 6 o'clock, I'll be sort of setting off at about 5:45 for a 45-minute journey. So I'd always be late. And he said, you think you can transmogrify from one place to another, and you just forget to time in the travel. And it might be as simple as that if you say the meeting's at 6 o'clock, that the person's kind of thinking about leaving at 5:45, 5:50, and they don't get there till 6:30, 6:45. And so there is something that you can do around that by saying 6 for 6:30. The meeting will start dead on time at 6:30, but there is refreshments. there is networking opportunities in a business situation. And so then that's like a nice thing to go to. So people will be much more inclined to be there a little bit more timely, because there's a carrot at the end of that if they get there early, there'll be food and drinks and an opportunity to network and have a chat with people. So this is a known thing that happens, which is why it's been addressed by saying 6 for 6:30, or 8 for dinner prompt at 8:30. And then you're going to miss dinner if you're not there.
Yes, yes. It is a good chance to network with people, to actually gather yourself together from the travel, because sometimes that can be stressful, and then take a few minutes just to get yourself in the right mindset before you go into the meeting, for example. I know here on our platform, I have requested that people show up 10 minutes early so we can do a sound check. And many times, you and I've been working together for a long time, so I'm sure you're sick of seeing my face.
Oh, absolutely not.
No, you're always pleasant. But when I haven't interviewed someone before, I'm always, I shouldn't say surprised, and there's no judgment, but I always notice if someone doesn't show up beforehand and you've never had an opportunity to meet me, and now I don't have an opportunity to ask you some important questions that are not in the brief that you provided, that's really a missed out opportunity. And sometimes, and it happened, I think last week, somebody showed up like 5 minutes after the show started. And because I had a co-host, we already went live, but I thought to myself, I really didn't even want to bring them onto the stage because I felt like it was disrespectful. And I didn't want to hear, I'm sorry, I'm late for the show, because no one cares. But we did the show anyway. So my point is that, to me, I take that as a measure of respect, that someone's there and we have an opportunity, respect on both parts, that I get to actually have some dialogue with them for a few minutes before we go live. So I think these are golden moments, golden opportunities that if we use time management and also putting in time for the unexpected. So I know for me, I really value this specific workout that I go and do, and I have it timed down to the minute. I know exactly how long it takes me to get there, how long it takes me to get set up and ready, but I add on another few minutes in case something else happens that would derail the perfect plan.
I'm going to share something with you that will make you smile.
Okay.
I like the StreamYard link to come through earlier, because I'm a little bit of a stickler for wanting to make sure that everything is right. And technology is technology. And so I set up my computer a good hour, if not more, before the show. And I make sure the lighting's right. And then I finish off getting ready. And then for about 10 minutes, I'm kind of twiddling with things to make sure that, sort of I'm right and in the right space, because it's in my home. And that's the attention that I have to make sure that it's right. Because when you're going into a studio is a studio, they've done all of that for you. This is your home studio. And so it's important to do those things, because the sound check, the lighting, the where you are on the screen, all of those things matter and they're important. And so I do spend that extra time, to get those things right.
And it is truly appreciated, which is a big part of why you're here every week with me. Because I recognize how professional you are and how much you want everything to be right, from the background to the chair to the lighting. It all does make a big difference. I'm always fascinated when someone comes on the show, especially someone who has a big following, and they're completely askew. Everything is what they're wearing. It's like a t-shirt they went out running in, and their bed's in the background. I'm thinking, gee, I don't know. Okay, this is how you want to come across. And we still go forward with the interview, but it does say something.
Well, my background is marketing and PR. So I used to be interviewed on TV live and on radio live in my marketing world. And I know how much attention goes into that in a live studio, because I used to do it back in the 90s. It was a long time ago. And so I value the importance of that. And maybe, you know, sort of it's not, they just don't think about it. Some people don't think, you know, it's not that perhaps they don't care. Perhaps it's not something that they've thought about. And, you know, that was my profession, you know, to have all those things. And so I was around people, presenters, that would, you know, check their hair, check their lipstick, and, you know, check that the microphone was in the right place, and make sure that the buttonhole was in the right place, and the tie. And so I was used to seeing that. And that is part of, you know, sort of my career and background that made me have attention. But some people probably just, it's not in their awareness to consider those things to think about.
That's a very good point. Thank you for sharing that. We are going to take a break right now, and we're going to actually watch a sponsorship from someone who is featured in the new book, Adversity to Awesome, the book that's coming out. Caroline has a chapter in it, and so does this person. Her name is Trish Robichaud, and the name of the clip is Changing Paces. And we'll be right back on The Listening Mentor right after this.
The world is changing, and your company needs to change with it. Whether it's procurement, employment, marketing, or customer service, it's now more important than ever for your business processes to be inclusive to people with disabilities. Hi, I'm Trish Robichaud with Changing Paces, and I'm here to tell you that making your business processes accessible to people with disabilities is simply good for business. Accessibility and inclusion are the law. But here's what you may not realize. Disability inclusion is an opportunity, not an obstacle. In fact, a recent 4-year study found that companies that fully embrace disability inclusion had a 30% higher profit margin than those that didn't. Your investment in staff disability inclusiveness training can pay off in areas like innovation, brand recognition, as well as customer and employee satisfaction and loyalty, not to mention productivity and profitability. At Changing Paces, we can help you make that happen for your business. Our experts have real-life experience that will help your team gain insight and best practices they won't get anywhere else. And we can help you create a customized training program to bring your organization into compliance with local and industry regulations. This topic is very close to my heart for me, very personal. Dealing with the challenges of MS for the past 25 plus years and having lost my job as a result of my diagnosis back then, I've made it my mission to bring disability out of the darkness and create a more welcoming environment for people of all abilities. As a pioneer in the field of inclusiveness, our company developed and implemented one of the first accessible customer service training programs in Canada. We provide complete online training solutions that blend with your branding, your policies, and your systems. Between our disability subject matter experts and our technical partners, we can provide you with both the content and the platform that you need to create an evergreen training program that empowers your people while it transforms your organization and your company culture. In short, we make disability inclusion easy in all parts of your business. Contact us now for a quote or consultation at info@changingpaces.com. Your bottom line will thank you.
we can then change it and become better, not only for ourselves, which is important, but for our family, our friends, our colleagues, and our work situations. So when something triggers us and we get a charge and we get upset and uncomfortable, this is an opportunity to decide, do you keep doing it and keep suffering, or can you look at it and change the behavior so that you feel more at peace internally and for others around you?
That's a great thought-provoking question. If we accept the fact, or when we accept the fact that we cannot change the other person or the situation, we can only be accountable for ourselves and our own reaction, is it okay to continue on as we do and just ignore the other person? The person's there and we can't get them to change. They're not leaving, they're not going. It could be a work situation. So can we just in our mind say, okay, this doesn't exist. I'm just going to do what it is I do.
In England, we call it water off a duck's back, that the person is in their drama and whatever's going on, that they're moaning about or they're getting angry about. And we hear it and we know that it's their stuff. Now, the response and reaction that we give whatever's going on in the situation is our stuff. So when we respond and react, that reaction very much is squarely ours. And so it's important to recognize that that's something that we are in control of. And we can actually decide not to get angry, not to respond in a negative way that affects us, ourselves, and the other person and escalate situations. We can choose to listen compassionately. And when we listen compassionately, then it doesn't hurt us because we're calm inside. And it actually has the effect of the other person feeling calm too.
Yes, and then that kind of diffuses the whole situation.
Yeah.
What are some other ways that we can look at our own behavior and find a way to channel that energy somewhere else? So one of them is meditation. You're an expert when it comes to meditation, Caroline. So what else would you suggest for our audience?
There's many very simple ways of not getting a charge on things. And there's a few here that I can share. One of them is to stop, to literally stop. In the space that you begin to react, stop, become aware. And in that space of awareness, you become present to you, yourself, and the other person. Become present to your surroundings and go into your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you feel? And the feel is, how does the wind feel in my hair? How does the sun feel on my face? So a sensory feel. And when you go into the five senses, the mind becomes overloaded sensorily, and so it can't think and doesn't charge, and the charge dissipates. This is something that you can do in your home, when you're outside. It doesn't matter where you are. Just focus on something in your surroundings to bring you into a present state of being in the moment that you're in.
Yes. And how many times are we not in the moment? We are somewhere else. We're always, and I know people, and I think I was like this a long time ago. It's always about either what already happened, they're constantly living in the past, judging our behavior because we're not acting the way we used to act, or else they're looking into the future where they have no control over it, and they're not even looking at their own behavior right now.
This is something that I talk to a lot of people about. How much time do you spend thinking about and analyzing, what about this, what about that? So future things that haven't happened. How much time do you spend in the past? And I start with that question because it's important to know how much time the person is spending. And so when I ask the question, how much time in the future, they go, oh, most of the time, about 70% of the time. And then I say, well, how much time do you spend thinking about past events and past conversations? Oh, probably about 50% of the time. So I say, well, hang on a minute. So if you spend 70% in the future and 50% in the past, how much time do you spend in the current moment of the moment that you're in? Oh, actually, you're right, I don't. And it can be, you know, I certainly had a client about a month ago that was so shocked by that, by literally that little realization that they were always in their mind, either stressing about future stuff or stressing about past stuff, and not actually being in the moment when they were with their children, when they were having dinner. If they were having dinner with their partner, they were really thinking about the meeting that they've just had. And I said, so you're not living, you're existing. And how sad is that?
Yes, very. And I remember when I was in my corporate career, I was very lucky. I got to travel all over the world selling meetings and events. And I would put it on my calendar because obviously, if you're leaving the country, it's a big deal. And I was always looking forward to the next trip and the next trip and the next trip. But then when I got on the trip, I was thinking about the next day and the next day and, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And not actually enjoying the day. And at some point I sat back and looked and I thought, wow, this wasn't really as exciting as I thought it was because I didn't take the time to enjoy it.
And that's exactly how I was. And that's what's changed for me personally. And that's what I do for all of my clients, that when you have the realization that when you're doing one thing, your head is somewhere else. And so you're not actually in the experience. And so where are you? You're in your mind, in your head. And so then you're not living, you're existing, you're on autopilot. And what a waste of a life when you're in your mind, thinking, analyzing in past and in future, and not really experiencing the holiday or the experience of the time that you're in. And it is very sad. Many people live like that. And that's where they've escaped into the mind because being in the emotional body is too difficult.
That's very true. And I think in some ways it's also easier for people to do that because they don't have to actually do the work. As you know, you and I have done a lot of work to get to where we are. And during that work, there comes pain and there also comes opportunity and choice. And we have the tools that we have because not only because of education and practice and experience, but actually doing the work.
It's a good word, choice, because we can choose to do what we've always done, or we can choose to become present and be in the moment of the moment that we're in.
Yes. Thank you, Caroline. Well, that was the sound that our show is coming to an end. I'm going to spotlight you, and if you can share your contact information and about this beautiful offer that you have. By the way, I spoke to a mutual friend of ours a couple of days ago and has shared how much you have helped him, and he's so grateful. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. So I offer a free Zoom consultation to literally bust your stress. We look at 1 or 2 symptoms. So if whatever you're complaining about, whatever's not working for you, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, behavioral, whether it's a relationship issue, an anger management issue, whatever it is that you're complaining about, and we schedule that through you contacting me by email, and that's on NoMoreStress. So the 3 words, NoMoreStress @live.co.uk. It will be my pleasure to help you bust your stress and help you move to a place of inner peace, inner harmony, and more to the point, so you get an incredible night's sleep.
Amen to that. Who doesn't want to sleep better, right? Sleeping better is so important. All right, Caroline, thank you again for being here and spending your Friday night with us. I do appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Wonderful. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye. Oh, she's so delightful. I share this all the time, but I just love what I do, especially when I have somebody on my team like Caroline, who is so professional and just gives so much important information and experience that people pay her for this, by the way. And you're getting it each and every Friday night, depending on where you are in the world. Maybe it's Friday afternoon. So please do reach out to her and hire her, work with her, and you'll see the difference that you'll have in your life as a result. All right, we're closing out our show for now. I just have one quick announcement because I'm closing this out as of Friday. Our reunion show, today's Friday, I'm sorry. Our reunion show is coming up May the 1st, and it is an opportunity for you to promote your business, your play, your song, your poem, your product, your service, your event. You'll have 15 minutes to speak to our audience on TV and on radio to let them know about you and your offerings. If you're interested, as I mentioned, I'll be closing this out this evening, my time here on the East Coast, probably about 8 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time. We've got a couple of openings left. You can go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and just go to book your session, and all the information is right there. That's the same place that you would go to book on any of our shows. All right, thank you so much. Our next show is coming up, and it is Loving Longevity. And my co-host is Annie Bush. We've got a great guest. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.